You're listening to the BJJ Globetrotters Pirate Radio Podcast, brought to you from St. Bart in the French West Indies. We talk jiu-jitsu, traveling, and people who do things a bit different in life. I am your host, Christian Graugard. Hello everyone, and welcome to the BJJ Globetrotters Pirate Radio Podcast. This is episode 9. We're closing in on 10 episodes, which is, I don't know if it's impressive or not, but I think it's pretty good from a little kind of side project to doing close to 10 episodes is something that I'm very satisfied with. I know a lot of podcasts have like a new episode every week or twice a week or something, but I'm really not planning on doing that. I think I kind of like the slow pace of this, and like once a month or something I'll do an episode, and that's a frequency that fits my life pretty well on my schedule. Right, so for this episode I have an interview with an old friend of mine, Mike Sweeney from Canada. He's a guy who I met through traveling and training like many years ago when I started doing this. I went to a few training camps, straight blast gym training camps in Portland, Oregon, back when I was like 20 years old or something. 2001, 2002 I started doing that, and I met this guy Mike, and at some point shortly after, I quit my office job, and I was wondering what to do, so I thought I'd better go travel somewhere and see the world. And Mike was the first guy to invite me to come visit his place. So yeah, off I went. I spent a week or two in Canada or something with him, and it was a great experience for me, especially being young, really shy about training and people, and I was not very confident speaking English, and so it was very nice for someone to kind of take me in like that, and it was really the beginning of my whole BJJ globetrotting life, so to say. So Mike has also been doing some really interesting things, such as sell everything to buy a boat and learn to sail for years, and then sell that to get on a bicycle and try to ride from California down to southern tip of Argentina, amongst other things, and doing all this with his wife Rebecca, and they've definitely been kind of an inspiration for me throughout the years, following their adventures and kind of seeing other people do things that I didn't really see many people do. So without further ado, here is the interview with Mike, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Live from British Columbia to my basement with geckos and my neighbor flushing the toilet. I have Mike from originally from Canada, right?
Yes, right. And that's where I am now too. But right. Easy. Yeah, a different part of Canada.
Right. Mike is an old friend of mine who has been doing a lot of crazy things in life so far. A lot of kind of crazy projects that I haven't seen a lot of other people do. So I thought it'd be interesting to have you on the podcast for a little chat. I wrote down a few things, but I have no idea where this is going to take us as usual. So do you want to introduce yourself really quick, Mike?
Sure.
Just like super brief.
Yeah, as Christian said, I'm an old friend of his. My name is Mike Sweeney. We met in the martial arts world. I'm originally from Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Perfect. All right. Before we start, let me just quickly go through this list, because when we talked about doing this interview or whatever it is, I asked you, really, can you just briefly write down all the stuff you've been doing recently? Because I haven't been following 100%. So, admittedly, I'll just quickly go through it. Ran a martial arts school for 20 years, something from 87 to 2009. Sold everything, bought a sailboat. We'll get back to all the details later. Sailed from Canada to the Caribbean, right, for a few years, 3 years. worked on boats, bought a new boat to sail to Patagonia, didn't work, started riding a bicycle from California to Patagonia. Nice, we'll get back to that. Flew back to Canada and now working at some kind of resort thing. Is that kind of correct, or what you've been doing, spending the last like 10 years doing?
That's a pretty good summary.
Okay, right. Right, so let's get through it. How did we even meet? I don't even remember. Did we meet at one of the old Straight Blast gym camps somewhere?
Yeah, I think actually it was probably in Portland, Oregon. I think we met at one of the Straight Blast gym camps, either at a camp or when we all got together to film some videos, I think, out in Portland.
Oh, that's right. We did the videos there. Yeah. I flew over. This was the very early days of my BJJ Globetrotting back in like 2001, 2002 or something. And
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember Matt came to Denmark. Someone invited Matt to Denmark to teach, and it was like, holy shit, you can wrestle. Like, we were all so super impressed by this jiu-jitsu stuff. So me and did you ever meet my friend Kenneth, the Danish guy? Probably not.
I don't know.
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah. So we went to Portland for 2 weeks during that camp. That might have been when I met you.
Yeah.
And it was only shortly after that I remember I quit my job and started to do the gym, and I was thinking, shit, I don't have a job or anything to do. What should I do? I can do anything I want. And obviously the first idea was to just travel somewhere to see the world and train jiu-jitsu. I was like 20 years old at this point, or 21 or something. And I don't even know how we got to talk about it, but you were the first guy to invite me. So I went from Denmark to Kingston. It was pretty far, Mike. You hadn't really prepared me for that.
I remember the trip from the airport to Kingston, and you were shocked that people in Canada actually drive that far, because we probably in Europe we would have driven through 4 or 5 different countries, but that's kind of status quo for Canadians.
It's funny because it's true. Because you must remember, this is Christian, like 20 years old, never really traveled outside of Europe, And I was thinking, okay, cool, I'll just fly there. The flight was like, it was really long because I had the worst layovers. And then when I landed, I was like, oh, I'm here, and you guys picked me up, and then you're like, oh, it's gonna be like 4 hours or something. I just couldn't believe it. 4 hours you can cross Denmark like 3 times. So, but that was Christian out seeing the big world for the first time.
That was a lot of fun. I remember your shock at the whole length of the drive thing very well.
I'm traumatized. I hate sitting in cars now. I mean, maybe that's why, because I was shocked by that. Anyway, I stayed with you guys for what, like a week or something, and
yeah, I think so. To be honest, that was it was so long ago that the details are vague, but I'm sure we had a fantastic time.
I remember you guys broke like 15, what do you call them, like blenders, because you making daiquiris after training every day.
Doesn't everybody do that?
Well, I didn't know at the point, I was I was young and very shy, and I wasn't comfortable with English at all. And like, I remember we came home from training and I was like so dehydrated, and you were like, hey, let's make cocktails. I was like, okay, sure. Oh my God, I had the worst headache, but I couldn't tell you because I was so shy about it. Anyways, I had the best time ever. We went out in like, I remember we just hiked somewhere out in nature, and we visited your parents or Rebecca's parents. I don't remember.
Oh, that's right. You know what? I totally forgot about that. That too. We we went out and we went hiking with Rebecca's parents. That's right.
And I remember. Maybe I didn't really hear about it, or maybe you didn't tell me. But you were like, one day, you was like, "Hey, okay, we're going to Rebecca's parents." I was like, oh, "Okay, cool. Am I going?" I didn't really know. Is it far? I think in the town or something. Like, well, of course you're going. It's like a 6-hour drive. Like, fuck. It was pretty far, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, that is pretty far, actually. Yeah, we were definitely way in the outback there. I remember. Yeah, we went up and found had you lost in the woods by yourself, taking pictures of nature, whatever you found.
Right. Anyway, it was a great experience for me as a 21-year-old, and I'll take this opportunity now, a little bit late, to thank you for the invitation. It was I was out there growing up, doing these things, so that was really nice. Anyway, shortly after I visited you guys, you told me we're gonna sell everything we own. The gym. Oh, you ran a gym full time, right? As your job.
Yeah, that was my business from '87 till 2009. So like 23 years.
Right. Both you and Rebecca were/are black belts, and Rebecca was competing in professional MMA as well, right? Do you remember that?
That's right. Yeah, she was the second female black belt in the country, and had a couple of pro MMA fights, of which she won both of them.
Right. Yeah, you guys were pretty active, and then suddenly I hear that you're gonna sell everything you own, to buy a boat, and you didn't. Did you not even? Do I remember this right? You didn't even know how to swim or something. It was like that level.
No, I still don't know how to swim. I'm very bad at swimming, and we definitely didn't know how to sail. We took like a week-long course. This is how you sail. We bought a boat and just kind of figured it out as we went along.
Okay, so walk me through this whole crazy project, because this is not just like, okay, we read a book one day and then, okay, we're gonna buy a boat. Let me hear the story of like how this actually came about.
Well, our standard story is that you may have heard people warn you about drinking alcohol in hot tubs. Well, we had a hot tub at our house, and after one too many bottles of wine sitting in our hot tub, we came up with the idea that we were going to do something different, sell our house, sell the gym, sell everything we own, buy a boat, and go to the Caribbean. Because it was cold out at that point, and we were kind of sick of winter weather. We wanted to go someplace warm, and the idea of having a boat that you could live in and travel on sounded like a good idea to us. And the fact that we didn't know how to sail, that didn't really seem like much of a stumbling block for us.
So where did you go from there? What's the process from beer, from wine in hot tub to actually, departing day one on the boat? Well,
the funny thing is that we, on that same night, after again we were kind of at least partially intoxicated, we came up with the idea that, or we thought at least that it would be kind of cool if we documented the whole process, because at the time we thought it was quite a novel thing. We've since learned that, hey, lots of people travel on sailboats, so it's not quite as exciting as maybe we thought it was at that particular time. But I think at that time, like maybe like at 11 o'clock at night, I think I registered a domain name 02cruising.com with the idea that we'd have a blog and start writing down everything that we did to get us from where we were to the Caribbean. And as I said, we didn't know how to do it. I think within a couple of days, I did some online research, found a place that would give us a kind of a live aboard course for a week. So over Christmas holidays, we flew down to St. Petersburg, Florida, and did like 7 days on a boat. Came back. We thought that was all fantastic. We didn't die. And we put our house up for sale like within a day, thinking that it would actually take 9 or 10 months to sell the house. Well, as it turned out, we had an offer like on the house right away. The very first people who looked at it bought it, wanted to buy not just the house but all the furniture that was in it.
All right.
Within a couple months, we were homeless.
Did they buy all your blenders as well?
I think we broke all those. I think probably during your trip. I think we wore them all out. But so yeah, we were essentially we were homeless after a couple months because we hadn't yet even bought a boat, and so we lived out of a closet in our gym because we hadn't yet sold the gym. So we packed up all the stuff that we didn't sell into a little closet in the gym. Didn't tell anybody. None of our students really knew. The end of classes, we'd lock the door, open up the closet, bring out a mattress, and yeah, like we lived in the gym with our 95-pound German Shepherd, who we still had at that time as well. So
Did you when you started to execute this and you suddenly were homeless, did you already have kind of an idea that whether or not you could even sell the gym or get rid of it or what to do with it?
Well, that's definitely the trickiest piece of the puzzle because, as you know, and probably most people can imagine, a martial arts gym is not, it's not like selling a convenience store with a bunch of inventory. It's a very personality driven business. Mm-hmm. And, the gym was us. So the only people that we knew could effectively run that would be one of our students and one of our higher ranking students. And so we had people in mind that we hoped to be able to sell it to, but it's still and ultimately it ended up being that we did make a deal with our top student, and the business ended up transferring to him. But that still took a lot longer to put together than it was to just sell our house, for example.
Right. I remember I was teaching a class when I was there, and actually there was a guy, I just did a camp in the US a few weeks ago. Some guy said, this guy says hi, he trained with you in Kingston like 15 years ago. And obviously I don't remember who it was, but I remember exactly what I was teaching, that I was teaching the reverse butt drop pass, which I still kind of pull off sometimes. And every time I do it, I just think about training in your gym. And you know what I remember? I remember all the nice frame pictures you had on the walls of you, like back in the 80s, in your karate, like high kick poses and your mustache. It's amazing, Mike. It's amazing. You need to post all these pictures. I need copies of them. I was like, wow, this is a real... It was like walking into fucking Cobra Kai. It was very nice. It's funny how you mentioned that you just registered the domain the same night, because I think that's... I don't know, we probably talked about this before, but I think that's a technique I've used a lot every time I had an idea or something. The moment I register domain, if I do that right away, it feels real, even though it's obviously not, but... If you have like a domain name and like an empty WordPress page, then you kind of promise yourself you got to do something about it, right?
It's true, and the funny thing about that blog is that I started writing in the blog like almost immediately, but because our plans weren't public, in fact, we kept them secret for months and months. The early posts in the blog never had any photographs of us, and I never actually used our real names. It was only after I made an announcement to the students, probably, 5 or 6 months later, after we had, actually had a real plan for the gym, that I went back and edited all the posts in the blog to include our names, because I didn't want someone doing some random Google search and finding out that, hey, the instructor is going to leave. What are we going to do? I didn't want everyone to freak out.
Did they call you sensei because of those pictures?
Yeah, originally they did.
I've always wanted that.
Some still do.
Anyway, you took swimming lessons or something, I remember, and then you just. How long did it take before you actually like got the boat in the water? That took a while, right?
We originally came up with the idea, I think, in October, and we didn't buy a boat, get a boat until kind of like July 1st. So, and our plan was to sail to the Caribbean, but the gym, by the time we bought the boat, we still actually hadn't sold the gym yet. So we decided to alter our plans and live on the boat in Kingston for an entire year, minus the 6 months or so that it snows, of course. But that was good. I mean, we were able to get out on Lake Ontario and do some sailing before we went off and killed ourselves in the ocean.
All right. Okay, so I mean, it's a jiu-jitsu podcast after all. So I have to ask, like, at this point, you knew you were going to give up training pretty much for X number of years that you're going to be sailing or whatever you end up doing. But how was that decision even? Because you're like pretty deep into it. I mean, you're very involved in jiu-jitsu and MMA and your academy, and I guess you're training a lot. And...
That was definitely a concern, and I'll admit today that it's one of the things that was toughest for us. But we actually did bring our jiu-jitsu gis with us onto the boat. In fact, I mean, you probably remember Christian Montez. When we sailed down to New York City, we got to train with him. When we got to St. Martin, we hooked up with the jiu-jitsu school in St. Martin. So there were some times when we were able to train, but obviously nothing like, the 3 or 4 hours a day that we were doing when we were running a gym.
Right.
I still hope, actually, now that we're back in Canada, it's on our agenda to get back into training. I mean, we miss it that much.
Right. Yeah, because it wasn't like you were just kind of at some kind of hobby level or something. I mean, this was what you did, right? I mean, and full time even.
Yeah, and the good part about it is, even though we actually haven't been training, we still have so many friends that are in the jiu-jitsu community that we communicate with on a regular basis. Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that we're going to be able to get back involved with the jiu-jitsu family again. Did
you did it take any convincing from either of you to make this decision, or were you both like, let's just do this?
It's so funny. I mean, Rebecca and I are like one and the same. So, people always say, "Oh, did you have to convince your wife?" Right. Rebecca's, Rebecca's as hardcore as anybody. She's always up for a challenge. So, no, it took no convincing whatsoever.
Right. That was the answer I expected anyway. So anyway, so you left after some preparations. You finally left Canada for the Caribbean, and how did it go? I mean, it took you still for a while before I got on the boat. Right, we'll get back to that, but let's hear the story.
Yeah, we spent a year or so in Canada on our boat, kind of trying to figure out how to learn to sail, but we were still pretty new at the time. So the whole trip south was a huge learning experience, lots of trial and error, more error than we would have liked. We sailed across Lake Ontario, went down through the canal system to New York City, where we got to meet up with our friend Christian, like I mentioned, do a bit of jiu-jitsu. From there, we followed the coast of the United States down through the Intercoastal Waterway, and then made our first overnight sail to the Bahamas. Lots of drama with that. It's a trip that probably should take 8 hours. It took us 14. We tore our sail, but we made it there in basically in one piece. And then over the next few months, kind of island hopped our way down to the Grenada in the Southern Caribbean.
How long did you sail the Caribbean for?
Well, I think we were there 7 years in total. We had you come to visit. I think if it wasn't our, was it 2010?
No, there was 2011.
2011. Okay, so that was our second year in the Caribbean. Yeah, I remember we met you in the Virgin Islands, and we picked you up in Tortola, and I'm not sure how much sleep you had. I think it was like none, and we immediately whisked you away to a full moon party where there was probably one too many cocktails served.
It was rum and coke. I remember way too well.
I remember that flying triangle I hit you with at about midnight.
Yeah, I remember that too. We even have a picture of it. Unfortunately, it's documented. So
it's the one and only time I've ever caught you. So I've got to live it up. If I have to get you drunk to do it, then I'll do it again.
I was confused about the rules. Like, could I slam or not? Like, I didn't know. I had to let you just go with it. I would say the backstory is this was during my round the world jiu-jitsu trip, and it was kind of midway through the whole thing. It was I remember it was one of the very first destinations that I planned, because you actually came up with the name BJJ Globetrotter. To all the listeners, Mike coined this, which became BJJ Globetrotters. But anyway, I remember I got this idea that I was going to go traveling, and I immediately talked to you about it, and you was like, yes, great, you have to come visit us on the boat. I remember you were the first pin I put on the map for where I wanted to go on that round the world trip, and we talked a little bit about like a good name and a domain name, and you suggested the BJJ Globetrotters, and that kind of worked pretty well. So I did this long trip, and halfway through I came to visit you guys. But every single place I visited, and I was only every place I was there for like 2 or 3 days, no more. And every place I came, the moment I hit the ground, people were like, "Yeah, I'm so glad you finally came. Let's go out, let's get drunk." And I was, still relatively young, so I guess I could. I don't know how on earth I handled that. I couldn't do that today. But I was drunk every single week for like 6 months straight, at least, during the trip and in the aftermath. And then I come onto the boat, and it's been quite a long trip. I don't know. I flew in from Florida, I think, to Saint Croix. Yeah, that's where I came in. That's funny. I actually sit right now and look at a map of that island. Okay, anyway, it's on my wall. I landed there, then I took the ferry, which was, again, longer than I expected, and it was quite a bumpy ride. And you guys picked me up somewhere, Tortola or something?
Yeah, I think, in Tortola, exactly.
It's funny enough, it's really not too far from where I am right now, but you guys picked me up. I was really tired. Really, really tired. I remember that it was like a morning flight from Florida at like 7 in the morning. I had to get up at 3 a.m. to drive to the airport. And yeah, immediately we sailed somewhere to go to like this party, and it was like quadruple rum and cokes all night. I remember I was steering the dinghy back to your boat for a few seconds until I realized I just couldn't go straight. I was just going in circles, and I was sure I was going to fall in the water and die. But yeah, next morning, Mike, that was I can say that hands down. And I've had many rough hangover days, but that was the worst I ever experienced, because I was also getting really seasick. So super dehydrated, super hungover, and seasick. That was a very bad combination. But anyway, I enjoyed it. It was
well. The super funny part about that is that you were determined that you were going to cook us breakfast while we were underway, which that's one of the worst things you can do, to go down into the galley of a sailboat while it's underway and start frying bacon or sausages or something. But you were determined to do it, and you. I remember you came up partway through looking kind of green, and I'm like, "Hey, Christian, you can't leave the stove unattended." So you went back down, and we were upstairs laughing. And then you came back up, and I remember Rebecca took mercy on you and said, "Forget it, Christian. I'll look after breakfast." Because that was absolutely the worst decision for you to do.
Yeah, it was definitely up there with the worst hangovers I ever had in my life. So bad, I can still feel it.
Then I also remember that we took you to a bar right after that, and then there were some girls trying to flirt with you, and they were thinking that you were very rude, and because you weren't having anything to do with them. I was like, "Look, my friend is just so hungover, he can't even talk to anybody."
It was really scary too. I mean, it was like I didn't. What was this, Mike? It was some bar. Was it on a boat? It was like on some like, it looked like a pirate ship, and it was like that's 8 very Caribbean. It was like 8 very Caribbean people, super drunk at like 11 a.m. Was that the one?
That bar is called the Willie T. Yeah, that's a famous floating bar in the British Virgin Islands.
Right. Yeah, I remember it way too well. Anyway. Anyway, it was.
We took you to all the hot spots, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it immensely, and it was my first time in the Caribbean. It was a place I really wanted to visit, and obviously ended up coming back quite a lot. And I think there was partly an inspiration for it to come visit you guys there. So how was living on a boat in the Caribbean for 7 years? I mean, that's pretty. I mean, I know you say that many other people do it, but for us regular people, then that's something. I don't know anything about it. How's life on a boat? I was there for 4 days. I was dying from dehydration, sun, and and rum and coke.
Well, obviously, hopefully for most people, the day to day is not quite like that few days that we had with you. Otherwise, you'd have a liver failure. So, no, I mean, living in the Caribbean on a sailboat is fantastic. If we didn't like our neighbors, we just had to pick up anchor and move to another place. We got to travel wherever we want with all of our stuff. We have to pay kind of attention to the weather. So there's a little bit of a seasonal ebb and flow of where people go to try to avoid the hurricane, the area where hurricanes tend to frequent. But it's great. I mean, and we did that on our own boat for a few years. But we're not rich. We were kind of living off our savings. So the time came where we had to earn some money. So we decided to get a job. I got my captain's license, and Rebecca and I worked on a different boat in the Virgin Islands, taking charter guests, mostly American guests for week-long vacations, taking them pretty much to all those same hot spots in the Virgin Islands that we took you.
Poor people, poor Americans.
Yeah, but they got to go home and recover, right? So they only had to do that for a few days, just like you.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to my next kind of question, and I'm sure you've answered this a million times before, but so how? Because people listening to this and they're definitely thinking this. How do you finance this? Like, how do you just kind of quit I guess you had like a kind of safe income from running your own business. You quit all that and you just finance a new life with zero income on a boat. Like, how does it work?
We knew right away. I mean, when we planned this, we're not wealthy. We don't have rich parents. We were basically living off our savings. We were working under the philosophy that, you don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow. And we'd had too many friends die suddenly at a really young age. So we decided we were just going to live off our savings. And we knew that we would have to get a job at some point in the future. We didn't really have any plan, but we were confident that we'd figure it out when the time came. And we proved that to be true. I mean, when we, we're getting to the time when we needed to get a job, we found work. We made it happen, and that's it. I mean, there's no real magic to it. We made a tiny little bit of income from our website, but certainly not enough to support ourselves.
Right. And I'm sure that would be the first thing that will hold people back from doing something like this is like, how do you deal with the uncertainty of not like knowing what you're going to do or what your income is going to be? How are you going to make a living in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Like, why do you think your approach worked? Like, why do you think you just kind of jumped into it? Maybe you already answered it. I'm not sure.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that people are always, they want to have all the answers before they start things. They want to know, like, do I have enough money so that I can live on for the rest of my life? Well, how do you really answer that question? And you're right. I mean, everybody wants to know what it costs. But the real truth is that what it cost us is not what it would cost you or somebody else. And that's why I've never really shared, a dollar figure, because it's kind of unrealistic. I mean, if you want to eat at restaurants every night and party like a rock star, well, then it's going to cost you a lot of money. If you have a little boat and it's quite simple and you make sandwiches for lunch and cook your own food, well, then obviously it's going to cost you a lot less. We've got very wealthy friends that we've met in the boating community, and we've got other people that live quite simply. And the fact of the matter is that those boats anchor in the same places. They get the same view every day. So you can just kind of make it work for whatever your income is. As for what's going to happen afterwards, I mean, you just have to have the confidence that in yourself that you'll figure it out. Because, I mean, even if you have a job today, unless you're working for the government, is it really guaranteed, right? I mean, you're self-employed. What's going to happen next year? Who knows, right? You're just going to make it work.
That's true. That's very true, yeah. Do you think everybody could do this? What you guys did? Theoretically.
Yeah. I mean, if you have that kind of confidence, sure you can. It's the whole sailing, boating thing. I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, if we could take a week of lessons and learn how to sail and then sail our own boat, I mean, anybody can do it. It's kind of you just kind of learn as you go. Where a lot of people have challenges is, in the relationship aspect of being confined with their spouse or significant other in a tiny place. And, a lot of people, if they're boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, they have separate jobs. They maybe are on different shifts. They may not really spend more than a few hours together every day, if that. When you're on a boat, you're there 24/7. I mean, it's pretty hard to get away from one another. So you need to be pretty solid on your relationship.
Right.
Being confined in a boat like that, if you have a good relationship, then it's gonna help it. If you have a bad relationship, if there's any weakness there, you're gonna figure that out pretty quickly.
Well, funny you should mention it, because I think probably the next or one of the podcast episodes in the near future is going to be with two friends from Sweden who bought a boat to sail across the Atlantic, and they only sailed for like 2 weeks or 1 week, and then they found out that they just couldn't do it together. So it's a longer story than that, but it's funny you mention it. That's probably way more important than the financial aspect of making it work, right? I mean, a bigger challenge probably for most people.
I absolutely believe so. Yeah. I mean, if you're on the same page with the person that you're spending time with, well then, you'll make proper decisions and everything will be great. And if you have trouble, well, you'll figure it out together. But if your relationship is not solid, when you run into some challenges, then you're going to start blaming each other and instead of working as a team.
Right.
It's the same as having a partner in business, right? I mean,
yeah.
If everything's great, well, we're buddy. But when you run into some challenges, if you're not don't have a good relationship, well then, that's going to be a cause for problems. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. So yeah, because one thing that I even at some point considered, probably at some point considered, because I walked down at the harbor here in St. Bart in town, and I saw there were like a few boats for sale, and just the thought kind of crossed my mind: hey, should I own a boat or no? I will definitely not have time to sail it or do anything, but just the idea of living on a boat or sailing or something, and the first thing I think is like, I have no idea how that works, and it seems like there's so much to learn. I was with you guys on the boat, and like, the amount of stuff that you had to remember and do all the time, and all the rope you had to pull and all that stuff. It's like, shit, I can never learn that. It's way too much. And then I think I would have to talk to some experts, and I was thinking, hey, I would have to call Mike, and then I realized, oh yeah, that's right. Your blog is actually called Zero to Cruising, because you had zero idea when you started, right? Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as tough as you'd think. You're right. There is a lot of things to learn. I remember when we took that week-long course, I saw before we traveled there, they sent an itinerary of all the things we were going to learn, and I was like, there's no way we're going to learn all those things in a week. And sure enough, by the end of 7 days, we'd actually covered it all, and we were by no means experts. That came only through lots of practice, but yeah, it's not that tough. Our motto has always been like, we joke about it, it's like, well, how hard could it be? How hard could it be to sail a boat to the Caribbean? How hard could it be? I mean, you just figure it out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that seems like it's a general theme for your approach to these projects, right? You just kind of try and then figure it out along the way.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do, right? I mean, the alternative is that you try to make sure that you have all the answers, which is really an impossible task.
Right.
So if you're waiting for that impossibility to occur before you start, well, then you're never going to do anything.
Right.
That'd be like, you would never have done all the great things that you've done with BJJ Globetrotters if you waited till you had all the answers before you started. There's always going to be some mystery there. You got to figure it out as you go along.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, pretty much everything has been figured out as I went along. I don't even know what's going to happen in a few months. Were you ever in like any like scary situations? Were you ever afraid to be on a boat at any point? I mean, it would be something that would scare me a little bit, to be like, I don't know, big waves in the middle of the night or something like that.
Yeah, there's lots of times we were scared. One of the worst bits of weather we had was very early on when we were still back in the United States, coming down through the Chesapeake Bay. I remember that we got the weather forecast was supposed to be, pretty benign, and we ended up in the middle of a gale, and it was way, way out of our comfort zone. Now, what I came to learn, though, is that, had those same conditions happened 3 years after that, we might have still been concerned, but we wouldn't have been as scared as we were, because it's like, it's the same as jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, if when you first start off, absolutely nothing. So if somebody gets the mount on you or a side control, and starts putting a little bit of pressure on you, you kind of panic and freak out. It's like, oh my God, I can't breathe, I can't move. But, by the time you're a blue belt, when that happens, it's happened so many times that, hey, you don't like it, but you don't freak out. You're not gonna tap just because somebody has side control on you, hopefully.
Right. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Did you let's move on from the boats. You actually plan to sail all the way down to Patagonia, right?
Yeah. So we had been in the Caribbean for quite some time, and as great as it is, we were kind of looking for a different challenge. So we had seen some photographs of the mountains in Patagonia, and we thought, wow, that'd be really fantastic to go there and see the glaciers and the mountains. And we're like, again, just like this, why don't we get a boat and go there on our own? So we actually bought a new boat with that intention. Unfortunately, that boat that we purchased, we found out about a month after owning it that it had some significant problems that were not disclosed to us at the time of the sale. The surveyor missed it. So it became a big problem, which has actually resulted in a lawsuit that's actually still ongoing. So it's quite an unfortunate situation, but we kind of found ourselves trapped somewhat. As funny as that sounds, we were trapped on our boat in Martinique. We couldn't do what we wanted to do. We couldn't sail it to Patagonia, but we couldn't really leave it. So that was it was a very frustrating time for us. And people, again, they might have a hard time imagining what that's like, because we're like, hey, you're in Martinique. That's like paradise. You're in the Caribbean. But whenever you want to do something else and you're kind of stuck somewhere, then that becomes a challenge. So it was frustrating for us. But at the time, we said, hey, well, if we can't sail to Patagonia, how else could we get there? And we kind of, it's funny because I'm staring at your logo right now, and you have the picture of the van on your logo, and that was our first idea. We're like, why don't we buy a van and we'll drive to Patagonia? And while that was appealing, we kind of felt like having a van would be a little bit like having a boat. It's mechanical. There's things to fix and things break down. And we were really tired of that by that point. So then I think I saw a video on the internet about somebody who quit his job and rode a bicycle to Patagonia.
Right.
And we were both like, wow, that's easy. Hey, I know how to ride a bike. I've ridden a bike when I was a kid. Why don't we get bicycles and do it? And we had no idea the magnitude of the tasks that we were going to take on, but we were like, yeah, let's do that. We'll buy a couple bicycles. How hard could it be? We'll get some bikes and we'll ride to Patagonia. And that became the starting point for our most recent adventure.
Right. And let's hear about it, because that's a part of your journey that I didn't get to follow a lot on your blog. So I know you got to write for a while, and then you kind of stopped. I want to hear what happened.
Well, so we managed to figure out how we could leave our boat in Martinique and just let the lawsuit run its course. And we flew to California, where our daughter lives, and we used her and her husband's house as our base to outfit ourselves for this trip. And our initial plan was to do something that's relatively common for cycle tourists. Is we were going to fly to Alaska with bicycles and ride from the most northern point in North America, which is Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. And we were going to ride all the way south to Ushuaia, Argentina, the southernmost point.
Common to say, this is something people normally do.
It's, I mean, as for a cyclist, if you're going to do it, that's kind of what you do. But
I know nothing about it.
I know it sounds crazy, but it's like the sailing thing. Like, once you're involved in it, you realize, hey, there really is a small a group of people. I don't know, maybe it's 100 people a year that do it. I mean, that's a pretty small number, but it's enough that while we were cycling, we knew through social media and people that we met in person, probably a dozen people that were doing something similar to what we were doing.
Right.
Ultimately, though, we ended up kind of modifying that. We were in California, and we decided that we would just take the, quote unquote easy route and head south into Baja California, which is Mexico, and follow this fairly challenging off-road route that had been mapped out called the Baja Divide. And again, we had no idea when we started this how hard it would be. We're like, well, other people have done it. We're in pretty good shape. We should be able to do it too. And what people immediately started telling us is that we were going to die because it was summertime, and people don't typically ride through the desert in the summertime. But again, we were like, well, how hard could it be, right? Well, we'll just carry extra water, and we did it. We didn't die. Was it hard? Yeah, it was pretty hard, and it was pretty hot, but it's obviously possible.
Did you hate it at some point? Did you absolutely hate sitting on a bicycle?
Oh, there was, just about every day. It was largely a sufferfest through Baja, especially because it was summertime. We were in the desert. We were pretty much dehydrated for about 2 months.
Did you dream yourself back to like a cubicle office job?
No, never. I never wanted to do that. But it's funny. People say, the worst day on a boat is better than any day in the office, or the worst day on a bike is better than any day in the office. That's total bullshit. We had a lot of good days in the office with air conditioning, being nice and comfortable. There's, like when you're suffering, you're suffering. However, at the end of the day, when we got to pitch our tent and enjoy the sunset, I mean, that's, it made it worthwhile.
Right. So how far did you make it?
We rode from Southern California at our daughter's house to San Jose, Costa Rica. So it's about 8,500 kilometers.
That's pretty far. And then what happened? Why did you stop there?
The age-old thing. We ran out of money. Again, we were living on our savings, and because we still own this boat that's in the Caribbean, we have most of our money is tied up in that and in this lawsuit. So, hey, when you run out of money, what do? you get a job. So we entertained a bunch of offers. We had the idea that we had some offers to go back and do the boat thing again, run charters, but we weren't really too interested in that. We had some offers in the United States, but being that we're Canadian, we can't really work in a lot of these countries legally. The only place we can really work legally is in Canada. So we hadn't been back to Canada since 2010, so we decided we would fly back there, hook up with our family, and try to do something different. So you started doing the bicycle trip without actually kind of having a full budget or plan for the whole thing, or did you just kind of hope that the boat thing would go through and that would fund it, or how does it work? A little bit of both. Yeah, I mean, if the boat issue had solved itself, then there would never have been a problem. But the budget for the cycling is like budget for sailing. I mean, we met people who were living on $5 or $10 a day, but they were probably eating peanut butter sandwiches every day and sleeping in their tent every night. We weren't doing that. We certainly didn't have a big budget, but we were probably a little bit more than that. So it wasn't a huge surprise that we ran out of money, but we're although we had to pull the plug before we finished our goal, I don't like to think of it as that we quit. We have intentions. We'd love to go back and kind of pick up from where we left off. And so, there's no reason why we can't do that.
Were you planning to ride a bicycle through Central and South America? First question people are going to ask, is that not dangerous?
That absolutely people are going to ask that. The danger is maybe getting hit by a car. And that's a danger that cyclists who ride on busy roads deal with everywhere, not just in Mexico or Central America or South America, but in cities everywhere. We were riding largely off road, so that minimized that risk. But if people are thinking about Mexico is a common one. People are like, you're gonna get robbed or shot or whatever. And the truth is that 99.9% of the people are so welcoming and friendly. It's the same as anywhere in the world. And we learned this on the boat, is that everyone in the world, almost everyone, is good. And you just have to kind of expect that. So, we just expected people to be good to us, and they were. The thing is that if you're not a drug dealer, if you're not a drug seller, if you're not a drug user, you're not a police officer having to deal with that kind of thing, then the danger really doesn't exist for tourists. I mean, if the isolated situation does occur, it's so rare that it's not worth staying home for, really.
Right, I totally agree. I've had the exact same experience traveling, that I think the world can look very dangerous when you sit at home and watch it on TV, but the moment you get out there, you realize that anywhere you go, people are just nice. Nothing really happens unless you look for it consciously or subconsciously, but nothing ever happened to me, and I was in pretty much every corner of the world being drunk and stupid, right?
Well, I mean, if you look on the news, recently a couple of cyclists were killed in Mexico, and that's a horrible, horrible thing. But the fact of the matter is that, people are shot and killed here in Canada, believe it or not. I mean, that happens all the time. So it's not a Mexico thing. I mean, it's a worldwide thing. But the truth is, if you look at the statistics, the vast majority of the people, and not just statistics, but what we've seen day to day is that people are super welcoming to travelers. Most people are good. I mean, if you're good, you attract that, right?
Right. You're right. Probably the worst thing you can do for traveling, if it's new to you, is to watch the news. Really, I mean, you should read statistics instead of reading the news, because and it's probably also like in the world today, everybody's connected, and whenever something happens anywhere, out of like billions of things happening, if it's something bad, you can be sure that there are going to be a bunch of people right there with a video camera in their pocket, in their smartphone, and it'll spread everywhere in the world, and you'll see, even though the bad things that happen, obviously it does happen, it's statistically extremely rare, but everybody gets to see it. Like it gets overexposed so much that I think that's holding a lot of people back from traveling or traveling outside of their comfort zone.
You're right. Yeah. If one bad thing happens, everybody's going to know it instantly. It's not like anything has changed, except for the fact that people hear about it. I mean, right. through years and years, it's probably always been the same. Isolated things happen, but hey, we never really heard about it because there wasn't that immediate ability to like post it on Facebook and have millions of people share it. But
imagine social media and smartphones in the medieval times or something. I'm sure there would be some pretty bad shit there.
I can't even. How could you imagine that? It'd be crazy.
Or even just 100 or 150 years ago. I mean, I totally believe that the world is only becoming a better and better place, and statistically it is. I mean, there's really no doubt about it that everybody's starting to live better, and like, what quality of life, and it's going up, poverty is going down, but it's very difficult to see when you're just constantly bombarded with like death and suffering and danger in the media picture.
Yeah, there's absolutely. I mean, the first thing. I mean, first of all, we don't read the news. I mean, we avoid it at all costs. My philosophy is that if there's anything important enough for me to know, that somebody's going to tell me. And with social media, yeah, I mean, you really have to kind of filter what you see, because it can. If you focus on the wrong things, you'll never leave your house, right? You'll be afraid everybody's out to get you, and everybody's bad, and that's just not true.
Did you at every point, even knowing all this, I mean, just like that statistically sitting in an airplane is one of the safest places you can be, then you still kind of worry about if that engine explodes. Were you ever like a little bit afraid of heading out on that bicycle trip, going through the fucking jungle?
Never. Okay. No, never. Not even once. We never had one bad experience. I mean, I remember one little sketchy town in Mexico where uncharacteristically, it's quite funny, because I think that most people have no idea what it's like. Is that, maybe they see movies of like drunken people wandering the streets or this or that, but
that would be me.
It's actually quite in most places in rural Mexico. It's actually quite hard to buy alcohol. I mean, you go into restaurants, there's no alcohol. It's quite hard to actually buy it. But in this one little town, they made their own kind of moonshine they call posh. And there was definitely an alcohol problem in that town. And I remember that we were walking back from getting some tacos, and these 3 or 4 guys kind of stepped in front of us. And I just kind of laughed at them, and we walked around them. And I said to Rebecca that they would have been a lot more intimidating if they weren't like 4 feet tall, because they were all quite short and drunk. And I thought it was quite funny. But yeah, I mean, that is the sum total of the sketchy things that happened to us in Mexico.
Right. So if you're sitting there, especially, I don't know where you're from, but listener, but if you sit there and are a little bit afraid of traveling outside of your country or something, now Mike and Rebecca, they got on a bicycle, and that was the worst thing that happened in Mexico. So don't be afraid. I even got an email. I get emails and messages like often from well, all the time, I should say. But I think yesterday or a few days ago, some guy wrote to me that he was considering going to the camp, but he was so scared about it, like flying from the U.S. to one of the camps in Europe. He was so afraid, like an adult. And for me, it's easy to say, like, come on, dude, like, just go, you know. But obviously there's some kind of fear. Like, what are you actually afraid is going to happen? It's more like, what if I get there and I can't, you know, get around or talk to people, or I get lost or something, you know? There's all these crazy fears that you imagine in your head before you're going somewhere. And I remember it. I remember it from when I did my first kind of early trips. But as with many things, the moment you've done it once, something that seems really complicated or scary, and the moment you've done it once, then it's easy, and you can look back and laugh at it. And I told this guy, like, I'm not sure what advice to give you, but I mean, just come on over. I'm sure you're not going to get lost. Not in the age of smartphone, internet. Everybody speaks English where you're going anyway. And then my best advice is just do it, and then you find me there, and we'll have a beer and laugh about how stupid it was you were so scared about it. So, but yeah, I get that often from people. They're afraid of traveling, and I think it's, as you said, like, just turn off the TV. That's probably the best advice, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's kind of like, people who are afraid to take a jiu-jitsu class, right? They you know, what's going to happen to me? You know, all these people, they know everything. I know nothing. I'm out of shape. People are going to laugh at me. I won't know what to do. And then when they get in there and they realize that, hey, everybody's actually really cool and helpful. Boy, I can't believe that I waited, you know, a month, a year, 5 years before I ever took that first step. You know, and then they regret waiting all that time. So yeah, absolutely. Just do it.
Right. Anyway, so you ran out of money, and then you took a job. Where exactly? Or what are you doing right now?
Well, we flew back to Canada to a little ski town called Fernie, BC, where we have some family, and we spent a month with them looking for work. And one of our sailing friends actually shared a link with me on Facebook. I'm not sure quite how she figured it out, but she found a job posting for a couples position to be the caretakers, managers of a private RV resort. So given the fact that Rebecca and I had worked together in the gym and, you know, had basically spent, you know, 24/7 together for, you know, a decade and a half,
right,
we knew that working together was something that we wanted to be able to do. So that sounded like a great opportunity. So we sent in our resume. They immediately contacted us. We went out for a interview and were pretty much hired on the spot. And so that is where we've been for the last 2 months, doing a job that, again, we had no idea what we were doing, but we've just kind of figured it out as we've been going along.
All right. How did it feel to fail is not the right word, I know, but like when you had to kind of give up on some of these projects, some of these crazy ideas you kind of started and it didn't work out. How did it feel? Because I know the fear of failure is usually the number one thing that keeps people from following up on their like dreams or ideas like this. But you did it. You did crazy things, and then you quote unquote failed. And then what happened, Mike?
You're right. I mean, though that was some tough things. I'm having to change gears to to have your intentions set on a big goal. Like, we were going to sail to Patagonia, and then when we found out that there was this problem with the boat that was going to prevent us from doing that, that was a lot of heartache. So we came up with a new plan, and that plan was to ride bikes to Patagonia. And then, we had to kind of pull the plug on that because of money. But so now we're doing something different. All those things do leave us with a little bit of regret, and especially because we still have so many friends that are out there doing it. And like social media that, it can give you that fear of missing out. We see all the photographs and hear all the stories of our friends who are still out there kind of doing what we want to be doing. So that's tough. I'm very happy for them that they still get to do it. And I know that, we still have lots of great things in store for us. And we don't really know, where this is going to lead. The funny, I guess the great thing about this is that every time we've changed gears like this, it has led us to new things that we had no idea about. I mean, had that sailing thing, if we had not had that problem with the boat, we never would have done the cycling thing. And that was so fantastic. I mean, that was such a growth experience for us. And I mean, now we're back here in Canada. We get to reconnect with some of our family. We've got a family reunion plan where everyone's coming to visit us, and we're in this new part of the country that we've never had a chance to do. And we're learning so many things at this new job, and we're kind of appreciated here for what we're doing. What's going to happen next week or next month or next year, we don't know, but we're still pretty optimistic. I mean, we haven't given up.
I think now that you're saying it, I think I've definitely had kind of the same experience that, as you know, I've also kind of started a lot of ideas and projects, and many of them have failed, and at some point you're very it kind of hurts that it fails, and you also kind of told everyone that I'm going to do this and this, and then it didn't work, and it was, I don't know, maybe not embarrassing, but at some point you kind of put it on a pedestal, and then you failed getting there, and that hurts sometimes because you put a lot of thought and effort into it. But on the other hand, like when you fail enough, then at some point you realize that looking back, every failure has been like one door closed, another door opens, and the other door is something, as you said, that I never expected. I failed at something that gave me some little skill or some connection or some new friends, and then everything took a turn in a completely different direction. And at some point, I kind of realized this, that like really the saying that one door closes and another door opens is been incredibly true for me. And at some point, I kind of just trust that. Really, I will do something knowing that it'll probably fail, but just with having faith in whenever it fails, something else will come out of it. And I think it sounds like you had kind of the same experience. At some point, you can kind of have confidence in that, even though it might not work out, then it's probably going to lead to something else, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, and it's interesting you said about you tell all your friends that you're going to do something, and then it's hard to change gears. It's one thing. I mean, our website was fairly popular, so we had to be kind of careful what we posted online. So sometimes we come up with crazy plans, but we keep that to ourselves, knowing that once we put it out there to the world, then we were kind of committed.
Right.
But
you kind of give. I usually say you give the idea responsibility as soon as you tell someone, or that's a point of no return. When you tell someone you're going to do it, you kind of give yourself responsibility to actually try at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're putting yourself out there on the line, and for people like you or like me or Rebecca, I mean, that means something. I mean, we're committed, but you also then have to be ready to change gears too. I mean, life is like that. If you're set on one path and you reach a roadblock, well, what are you going to do? For us, we don't just give up and cry. I mean, we're upset, but we try to look for a way around it.
Are you afraid to be kind of stuck in life and do the same thing all the time?
People often ask, like, why did we sell our martial arts gym? And I thought that was one of the coolest jobs you could ever have. Is that, I mean, we got to work out all day to teach something that we loved. But as cool as it was, my thinking is that if you do the same thing for more than a couple of decades, it can get a little bit old. And so, we were looking for a challenge. And that's kind of what drives most of these things that we're doing is we are always looking for something new. And that means we love to learn. And so even in this job that we're doing right now, we're learning new things every day. Maybe we're not riding our bicycles over the mountains or sailing a sailboat in the Caribbean, but it's still something new. And I do have faith that it's gonna lead to good things. What that's gonna be, I don't know, but we're definitely not in a rut.
Where do you think you're gonna be in 10 years?
I have no idea. I would love to be able to say that I have this plan all worked out, a 1 year and a 5 year and a 10-year plan. But, we've always just kind of been winging it. And, we did it with our gym and we did it on the boat and we're doing it now. I mean, we really don't have that kind of a plan. I have faith that Rebecca and I will be doing something fun. We'll be having a good time, whatever it is. I don't know if we'll be in Canada or where we'll be, but I just don't know.
How old are you now?
51.
51. So okay, other 50-year-olds will say like, hey, how can you not have a plan? Like, what are you going to do? What about retirement, safety, blah blah blah, all that? Like,
how does anybody really know what's going to happen? I posted on our website today something quite sad, actually. We stayed with a couple when we were in Mexico. We'd been in Mexico like almost 5.5 months. We were just about to leave the country, and we stayed with there's an equivalent to couch surfing for cyclists. It's called warm showers. It's for people that take you into their home when you're on a cycle tour. And we stayed with this couple that we'd never met before, Martin and Karina. And I just found out like a week or two ago that Karina passed away. Just suddenly. And that was shocking for me, but it's not the first time that we've had good friends who are young and healthy and they pass away suddenly. So how does anybody really know? What are you going to do? Are you going to work in a factory until you're 65 and save all your pennies so that you can retire at that point and then go and enjoy yourself? Well, why not do it now? Who really knows what's going to happen next year?
Right.
You just don't know.
I think, obviously this is, something that'll make people, you give people those exact thoughts when someone, suddenly dies. There was kind of the story of my trip as well, and which I wrote in my book about it, that my friend just passed away just completely out of the blue. And I think maybe something like that kind of must happen to you before you really think about like taking some real risk in life and just, as you guys do, just doing crazy things because you never know when it's too late, right?
Yeah, I can think of like half a dozen people right now who passed away suddenly at a far younger age than I am right now. So what are you going to do? How long are you going to wait before you start living? And how long are you going to live for? It's kind of our philosophy that we'll just figure it out and we'll make it happen as we get there. We don't have a pension. We don't have a big bank account, but that doesn't cause us to lose sleep. We've made it work this far. We'll make it work in the future.
All right. And I think it's valuable probably for people to hear that you've actually you pulled it off at least this far, without following like kind of the standard cubicle job kind of safety net route in life, right? Yeah, and certainly that's not to put down the people that
that do have good careers and are enjoying themselves. It's not, I'm not gonna say, hey, go quit your job tomorrow and go ride a bike around the world, even though that might be a very fantastic thing for you to do. That's a decision that, you'd have to make for yourself.
Right.
But, the future is not guaranteed for anybody, no matter what path you take. If you want to take the more mainstream approach, it's no more guaranteed than for somebody who's kind of living day to day.
Right. And I'm thinking, I completely agree that, again, not to say anything bad about people having like career jobs and stuff, because I'm sure a lot of people enjoy that. But I'm also sure there's a lot of people in that kind of situation that want to do or dream of doing what you guys have been doing and is doing right now, but kind of doesn't know how to do it, or if it's, or maybe they're afraid because you don't have that, you live kind of with no like long-term plans.
Well, the big fear is the fear of change. And by that, I mean that people who don't do things are afraid that if they do it, that things are going to end up worse off than what they are right now. It's like, if I take a new job, what if I don't like it? Or what if I end up making less money? What if I fail at that compared to what I'm doing right now? Or, what if I sell my house and I move to this other place, but I don't like it as much as this house? That fear of change is what holds people back from doing everything. What if I'm not happy in my relationship, so maybe I should break up with this person. But what if I'm less happy? So maybe I'll just stay with them, even though I'm not really happy, because maybe I'll be less happy if I leave them. That fear of change, that's really the thing that holds people back from doing anything. So you just have to have faith that, hey, if you make a decision and it isn't quite what you like, well, then you make another decision.
Right.
You just keep changing until you get to be what you want, because change is life. You have to kind of embrace it.
I think it's also something that you kind of need to practice. You don't reach like your level of confidence in things are going to be okay without it's a process, right? You have to fail enough times so you're comfortable failing, and that that okay, it's actually going to be all right.
Yeah, I would agree.
Or have you always been like this, or?
No, absolutely not. And I would credit my martial arts background in helping that. When I was a kid, I started doing karate, I think when I was 13. I would never have called myself a confident kid, and I definitely wasn't athletic. So any confidence that I have, and athleticism, as small as that might be, is solely through, decades of martial arts training and running my own business. That's the same thing. I had some pretty good mentors, but yeah, I failed in a lot of things. But it's just, like you said, it's kind of like practice. You may not do it intentionally, but every time that you overcome a stumbling block, it boosts you into knowing that, hey, if I run into some trouble in the future, I'll be able to land on my feet.
Right. I don't know where I've heard the saying that like the key to success is to keep failing until you accidentally don't fail anymore. I think that really struck home with me, because it's totally true. You need to be comfortable in failing, and it's practice. You got to do it a lot.
Yeah, very few people, hit oil the first time they drill a hole. Some people do. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that most of the successful people, however you define that word, have quite a few failures behind them.
I think there's I read some statistics. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like the average billionaire has been bankrupt 3.75 times or something like that, and that tells you it's pretty much just confirms the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm still I haven't. That's the problem. I haven't been bankrupt yet, so that's why I'm not a billionaire.
You've been close.
Maybe
To become
I need to speed up that bankruptcy process.
You need to be comfortable being bankrupt, Mike.
I know. I haven't quite got there yet.
Are you gonna ever train jiu-jitsu again?
I have somebody sending back our jiu-jitsu gis. We left our jiu-jitsu gis with our friends in St. Martin. I think they actually put it in the post to send them back to us. And we've done some recon on the jiu-jitsu gyms that are in our area. So we sure hope so.
Is it Melissa in St. Martin? She's got a gym there.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we left our jiu-jitsu gis with her and her brother David with the idea that they would use them for any visitors that they had. But I'm pretty sure that David just sent them back to us. We spoke about it about a week ago.
All right. Oh, that's funny. Small world. She's in St. Bart for all the camps we do here, so I know her quite well.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Anyway, so you wrote a blog about this whole thing, right? Like pretty much from day one. Is everything still online? Like, can you still go through the archives and find the very first post about?
Yeah, there's probably close to 3,000 posts online right now. It's massive. Yeah, you have to use the search bar, or if you have a few weeks of maybe you're in the hospital bed or something, and you can't move, and you want to just do some reading, then you could start at the beginning and wade your way through. Believe it or not, some people still do. I mean, most of it is sailing related. I mean, they're for people who have the idea that they want to buy a sailboat and go cruising, but they don't really know what they're doing, and they want to figure out how somebody else has done it. Well, that's kind of all documented. The highs and the lows are there. We also did write about our cycling trip. So there's a fair amount of detail for the route that we took from California to Costa Rica. And as I said, I posted today about our friends that we met in Mexico, and kind of that sad turn of events with one of them passing away. Yeah. But I don't write on it like I used to. When I was on the boat, I think I posted every day. In fact, if I didn't post every day, I would have people emailing us to find out if we were okay. They thought that our boat, we had been abducted by pirates, or we crashed our boat or something. My schedule has fallen off, so people don't worry about us quite so much anymore.
Right. Well, so the site is 02cruising.com, right?
Yeah, all spelled out.
Yeah, I'll put the link on the podcast notes. It's easier, I think.
Perfect.
I would say I think we kind of do, or at least approach life kind of similarly. I think you also kind of live a kind of a project-based life. Like I also have to kind of do projects all the time to keep me going, or like something I can try to accomplish. And I think one thing you mentioned a little bit earlier that I didn't catch up on was, as you said, like when you try to do something completely new that you know nothing about, you think like, oh, you're probably the only one or something doing it, and then you realize, oh damn, there's like a lot of people actually doing this, right? Like you said, with the sailing, you thought it was kind of a rare thing, and the same with the bicycle project, right?
Yeah, like a lot of these things, they're small communities, and when you're on the outside, you might think it's a super rare thing, but there are people doing cool things all over the world. So, and I guess you could extrapolate on that and just imagine, well, what are all the other cool things that people are doing that you know nothing about? Right. I mean, it's kind of endless, really.
And I think I've experienced this a lot, and I also talk to people about it, that like, especially when you live your life, the world is so vast that it's impossible to kind of comprehend everything that's going on, and you kind of imagine your world as being the little bubble you live in, be it like having, I don't know, a desk job as I did, or whatever you do, and then you can't imagine that that it's normal for some people to ride a bicycle from Alaska to southern Argentina. But it is for some people, and the same even if I was thinking about when I was backpacking, when I was young, when I did the very first trips, and I was like, damn, I was like backpacking in Thailand or something. I was like, this is something really like crazy to do. I mean, I'm just gonna wear a backpack and travel around. And then you get there and you realize, oh, there are like thousands of people who are doing this and for years, like nonstop. And even maybe you kind of, I don't know, at least for me, you know, you have a regular job and you think, okay, this is probably what I have to do to make a living and to make this life work. And you imagine, now maybe someone is like, could I maybe, you know, work on the road or, you know, just travel and work online? But it seems like it would be such a rare thing. It's so difficult to do. And you realize, I mean, there are like thousands and thousands of people who travel like permanently and just work on their laptops, and it's totally doable. And the moment you kind of tap into those communities, you realize, oh, people actually done this. And I think that goes for a lot of things. And I talked to a lot of people who've been surprised like that, that they suddenly, you know, they open one little door and on the other side there's a completely different world of, I don't know, people who are living on sailboats or riding bicycles, or even just working online and traveling. And I think there are a lot of communities like this that you can find if you look for it. I mean, if there's something you dream of doing, then social media is great, right? As you say, you quickly kind of get into that network of people who are doing one little niche kind of activity. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, when we first came up with the idea that we were going to do the sailing thing, you know, we did what everybody else does today. We Googled it. I don't even remember what we searched, but we found a few blogs of people who've done it. And now at that time when we first did it, there wasn't as, you know, there was lots of people sailing, but the blogging thing wasn't quite there. There wasn't that many people who were posting online. Now everybody has a blog, right? So it's a lot easier to find that information. I mean, that's the great thing about the internet. You know, I had to do a repair job today on something mundane, but I just didn't know how it worked. So what did I do? I went on YouTube, did one little search, boom, showed me how to do it. I went, fixed it, bang. Anything you want to do, you can find it on the internet. So
that's right. There's actually another example I just remembered was we do like a kind of an annual sponsorship of people who travel with JiuJitsu. We just send them some gear and help them a bit along the way. And I made a post about like, hey, if you travel for JiuJitsu and maybe we can sponsor you some gear and stuff. Here the requirements were fairly basic. It's more like you travel to, you do like an extensive trip this year that's at least like a few months long. And you go through several different countries. And I remember one of the comments on Reddit was like some guy who said something like who on earth can take several months off just to travel and do jiu-jitsu? And I told him, you'd be surprised. I literally got like more than 120 applications from people who are planning to do like super long trips. And then again, it's kind of the same that you think something doesn't exist, and I mean the world is a big place, and suddenly you realize, oh, there's a huge community of people doing exactly this and way more than you think. Maybe because you kind of imagine that the whole world functions like or follows kind of the railroad tracks of your own little bubble, which is definitely not the case.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree.
Right, Mike. It's getting late, and I'm getting tired. And I'm getting really philosophically tired. So maybe it's time for me to get some sleep. Anyway, I think it's been really interesting to follow you guys doing all these things, even from the sideline. More or less active on the blog throughout the years, but as you say, you posted every single day for years and years. So it was like a lot to read. But I think for me, it's been kind of a a good inspiration to see that you know that you could definitely change up your life and do something completely different. And I mean, I'm trying to do the same all the time, and it's nice to kind of, you know, to follow someone who's doing it and seeing, oh, this is actually possible. You don't immediately drown or get shot or die or something just because you have these crazy ideas of what you want to do. So you guys have definitely been a big inspiration for me, and also kind of taking me in and inviting me as a 20-year-old shy Danish guy who'd never really traveled on his own before. So it's been a big inspiration for everything I do today, really. So that's why I immediately put you on the list for when I got the idea for the podcast, that I wanted to talk to you guys and spend a little bit more time about hearing details of what you have been doing.
Well, it's been super great, actually, just kind of reconnecting with you too. I mean, we follow you obviously through our social media stuff, even though we may not talk like this on a regular basis. I mean, since that time that we probably last saw you in person, I mean, you've done some pretty fantastic things, lots of growth. So we're happy to call you a friend, and we're super impressed with everything that you've done.
Well, I can only say the same. So I hope I'll get to visit you guys one day in your new place there before you leave it or something. I'm not sure I want to visit you on a bicycle in the jungle or something, but whatever you come up with next.
Well, you definitely have an open invitation to come and visit us here in British Columbia. You'd love it. The lakes and the mountains are pretty good, and it's not like the jungles of Central America. That's for sure.
Is it a place that people can people come visit or stay there, or how does it work?
The place where we're working is actually not a place where people can come and visit. I mean, we have lots of friends who are planning on coming to visit, but the place where we're working is actually a private resort that's all owned and occupied by the members. Right. So our job is to kind of look after the resort and make sure that the day-to-day operations go, but it's not a campground. However, there are lots of places in the area where people can come and stay, and then definitely we could get together. Are
you gonna get a few mats up there and people can come visit you so you guys can start training again? Because I think you should start training a little bit.
I think we should too. There is a gym here. There's a weightlifting gym as part of the resort, and Rebecca's there doing her best Jocko imitation. She's there like at 5 o'clock in the morning every day, sweating. So maybe I need to get up there with some mats and kind of follow suit with her.
Right. If you do, I'll make sure to post about it in the Globetrotters community and say that people should go there for a little trip.
Well, there is some jiu-jitsu places not too far from us. So
yeah, but you're the star now, Mike. You're the star up there on your podcast.
Yeah. The star with white belt skills. So I need to brush up on that.
But a great drunken flying triangle.
Right. That's it. That's what I need. Is more margaritas.
Let's wrap it up with that. And it was a pleasure to talk to you again. And say hi to Rebecca for me. It's been I don't know, more than 10 years. A long time since I saw you guys last.
Well, we'll keep in touch. Thanks very much for having us on your podcast, Christian.
Pleasure was all mine, Mike. I'll follow your blog, and if you don't write one day, I'll call you and see if everything is okay.
I appreciate that. Have a great night.
Same to you, Mike. Bye-bye. Okay, back in the basement, and it's really one big mess today. I'm leaving for Europe in 3 days, and I didn't pack anything, and I tried to sort everything in my basement because I need to clean it out completely because there's going to be some renovation work while I'm gone. But it's not going very well. So I'm just sitting here in between piles of stuff. Anyway, I'm heading to Europe in a few days, and it's going to be a long summer there. We're doing the summer camp in Belgium in a week and a half, and then I'll be back in Denmark for a few days before going to Greenland for a weekend camp, and then directly on to Iceland for a week there, back to Denmark for something like a week or a week and a half, and then off to Germany for the fall camp. So I'm going to be pretty busy, and I was planning to head back to St. Bart's after that, but since there's going to be unexpected renovation work on my apartment, I'm going to have to travel Europe for a little bit longer, maybe 1 month, maybe 2 months, I don't know, which is a little bit annoying, but it's also not the worst thing that you're forced to do, just go traveling for a few months. I posted in the members of BJJ Globetrotters group if anyone wanted to invite me for 2, 3, 4 weeks during September, and I would come and teach for free in their gym. I got a lot of emails about that, and I got to sit down and go through it. I think I won't have time to do that before I'm in the plane or something. But if you're out there, if you're somewhere in Europe and you live somewhere interesting and you'd like to invite me to come and teach for a week or 2 or maybe a month, shoot me an email on mail@bjjglobetrotters.com, and I'll take a look at it. I'll find a place to stay myself, and I can take care of myself, but I just thought I would try to connect with some Globetrotters academies around Europe and see if anyone can use some help. It's a free public service for the members of the BJJ Globetrotters community. And for the Life Coach Corner question of the day that popped up on the Facebook group, any plans to extend the brand further afield to Asia? And what are your main goal countries to expand to in the coming years? These are questions I get a lot, and I always kind of give the same answer. I don't have any plans for the camps, really. I don't sit and look at a map of the world and think about kind of where there would be potential for making a camp. That I approach it the completely other way around, where if there's a place I want to go myself, I'll see if maybe I can set up a camp there. I need mats to be there already, otherwise it's way too complicated. But the way I approach the camps is really, I think the camps only work if I'm really passionate about going. If I don't want to go, then I'm not putting all my passion into designing the experience there, and it's not going to work. So the camps are really approached as being my holidays. I just kind of design my own dream holiday and then invite as many friends along as who wants to join. So sometimes like 200 or 300 people want to join. Sometimes it's 50. And even if like 5 people wanted to go for a camp, I would still go. Or even if nobody wanted to go, I would go and just kind of hang out myself and do all the fun stuff. So the way I kind of approach expanding, so to say, or kind of looking for new places is just it's just what randomly pops up for me. And if a place kind of pops up in my life, that someone tells me about a place and I'm thinking, wow, I'd love to go there, then that might get on the research list. But I'm not sitting around here in my basement looking at the map and thinking, Asia, we don't do anything in Asia, we should do that. And then kind of, I don't even know where to start. Google, I don't know, large mat spaces in Asia or something. That's not how it works. The same for like the US West Coast. People ask me all the time, but unless I find some kind of excuse for me really wanting to go there, there's not going to be a camp. So right now I'm going to the US probably twice a year, and that's kind of plenty for me. I'm not like super, I don't really feel like going there 3 times a year, and because there are other places I want to spend my time in visiting. So yeah, I have no plans to extend the camps to Asia unless there is some amazing place in Asia that pops up that I really want to go to. It's also really far from the Caribbean, like really, really far. So that also kind of plays in that if I have to go there, I need to spend a few days on traveling alone. My friend from here, he just went to kind of a surf camp in Indonesia, and he said he took seven flights to get there. It was like 36 hours to get there. I'm not sure I want to do that for a camp. So, and I have so many good ideas already. I mean, the research list every year is more than 50 locations that I kind of look into and try to set up, and usually boil it down to like 8 or 10 during the year. So there's plenty to go around. It's not like I'm I'm lacking ideas for camps. So whenever this summer trip is over and I'm back here in my little office, I'm gonna sit down and go through that list of currently 58 possible locations for next year. And also, you have to consider that to do a new camp, I would have to cancel another one. There's a limit to how many trips I can do a year, and I can't do like 25 camps a year. It's impossible. So, and that's the other problem, that every camp I do, I love it so much, I want to go back. So it's really difficult for me to stop doing a camp to do something new, but I'm going to have to do it eventually. So that's the answer to that question. And if you have anything else you want me to take up here in the podcast and talk about, or any questions, feel free to shoot me an email on mail@bjjglobetrotters.com, and I'll be happy to answer it. I always reply to emails myself, and usually within a day or two. So this was the 9th episode of the BJJ Globetrotters Pirate Radio podcast. If you want to subscribe to it, just go to bjjglobetrotters.com/podcast, or look it up on your little app. If you got an iPhone, the podcast app, it should be easy to find. Anything else you want to know about BJJ Globetrotters, just go to bjjglobetrotters.com and everything should be there. If there's any questions, anything you could use my help for, or just want to talk about something, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm always available, and I'm always happy to answer any questions or help out wherever I can. Okay, I'm gonna start cleaning up my basement and find a suitcase for the big trip to Europe in a few days. I'm looking forward to see a few of you in Belgium, Greenland, Iceland, or Germany doing that trip. And hopefully I can get through it without completely burning out from rolling with 150, 200 people every week. But pretty excited about it, and looking forward to see some of you there. And that's it. Have a nice day.